Nothing is lost. The universe is honest. Time, like the sea, gives back all in the end, but only in its own way and on its own conditions. Empires as grains of sand, forests as coal, mountains as pebbles. Be still, I say. You were never the water, only a wave, not substance, but a form substance assumed. Thus ends the reading. Welcome this morning. I'm going to invite you to say our opening chalice lighting with Susan Hebel. There we go, and say it along with her as we light our chalice, or along with me as Susan lights the chalice. We promise to listen and learn together with compassion, curiosity, and an open mind, to stay engaged, participate, be a welcoming and financially healthy church community. Work together and beyond our walls to address social and environmental challenges and support our church with its mission with time, talent, and treasure. Thank you so much. It is great to be with you on this beautiful beginning of summer. It's almost here, right? Sunday morning. My name is Pam Romancic. My pronouns are she and theirs, and I'm really grateful to see so many of you here. Each of us brings very different lenses, experiences, and ways of understanding the world, and those identities are all part of who we are, and each identity that you bring is welcome into this space this morning. We all share in affirming the worth and dignity of every single person. I'd like to say thank you this morning to Susan Hebel, who's our worship associate, to Jonathan Hand, who is filling in for poor Jamie, who got COVID for a second time. My goodness. Also, ongoing thanks to Jean Schaefer and Alex Dvorak, who make sure all of this stuff can happen. Thanks, guys. I wanted to, if you had noticed these bright and cheerful balloons, these are left over from the fundraising event on Friday, and so Steve was going to come up and give you an update on what happened on Friday night.
Thank you, Pam. Again, we had a wonderful Friday evening. It was, I think, just a terrific success. Wanted to thank everyone for your efforts. It truly was a big community coming together, and just a wonderful time, and just sort of an example of how we all can rally and do some wonderful things when we put our hearts to it. I wanted to thank so many people that helped, and if I could ask people to stand, I'd like to thank the planning committee. Would everyone on the planning committee please stand? Anyone here? Oh, maybe there's Nancy. So the planning committee met for 2 months to organize the event. Wanted to thank Pam Fodor. She arranged for, we had a wonderful meal that was basically paid for by one of our members, and she arranged that and arranged for the food and so many things about the event. It just was, thank you, Pam. You'd stand. Wanted to thank the entertainers. We had wonderful entertainers. Okay. Wanted to thank those that helped with the setup and takedown. That was a big effort. Anyone here from that? Maybe we're all recovering. Oh, great. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We had folks that helped with the food, folks that helped with the bar, folks that helped, and maybe all the donors, if there are donors, want to stand. That was, again, we have wonderful gifts, and thanks to BidOn. Thank you all so much. Just a few housekeeping items. If you haven't paid, please, we'll be here to take payments. There are still a few open items, and I believe signups can happen today for that. And then there's also some furniture to move. So we have a few open items. If you could help us with that, we'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pam. Thank you, and thank you, Steve, and everybody. That's a wonderful event. A little bit more of what's going on around the church. We're nearing the end of the church year, and your board of trustees is working really hard to get everything together to create a packet in order to hire an incoming minister. Did you want to say anything, Bob, or just let the note? Okay. So they'll tell you more. As details become available, you will be kept informed and know what's going on every step of the way. Next week, Jonathan Hand and Ron Solberg are going to be leading worship. And the following week is our flower communion. And so those of you who've been around along know we each bring a blossom, either from our garden, from the roadside, from the market, wherever you want to bring one from. We put beautiful vases up front, and then we celebrate our unique and the beauty and uniqueness of every single person. It's one of my favorite events of the year. And so we'll do that on June 5th, and then June 12th. June 12th is very important. All our members need to be here. It's the annual meeting. Big things always happen at the annual meeting. So the annual meeting will start at 10 o'clock or 10:30. I forgot to. 10:30, regular time, 10:30. The annual meeting will start at 10:30, and then after the annual meeting, we will have a very abbreviated worship service, and it'll be a farewell ritual for me to say goodbye, for me to hand off the keys, all that lovely part, and then there'll be a celebration out in the yard of all the joy and wonderful things we've done. So please join us for these next few weeks, and then we'll move into summer mode. If you are new to the church, you can sign up to receive our publications back at the desk in the back. If you're online, you can go on the contact form at the top. There's a drop down. You can fill that out. You'll start receiving our Touchstone, our News and Notes publications. Now, it's time for us to begin. We start with gratitude for this church community. We start by listening for the wisdom is in each one of our hearts. We start by touching into that gratitude that lives deep within us, and by celebrating this faith home that walks with us every step of our lives. Let our worship begin. Let us sing our opening hymn, number 38, Morning Has Broken. Please rise in spirit or body. Thank you so much. Please be seated. Our next part is the story for all ages. So it's going to be a video up on the screen, so you're welcome to just stay in your seats. Today is our final day of religious education. So today, after the story, you'll go on over and I'm sure Pam has just a wonderful day planned for you to celebrate your last day. And then there will be childcare in the next couple weeks, but over the summer, there will not be childcare. So just be aware, through June 12th, we'll have childcare, and not after that, but we'll all work it out. So I'm going to invite you to sit back and enjoy this a sweet story. I think it's called Dog and Heron. Talking about emotions and how we feel good today, and that just brought that idea of joy, and what we do for others is what brings us the most joy in life and gives us back the most. Now, you children are going to go over with Pam, and I think they're going to be digging in some dirt and doing some fun things and having some joy. So let us all sing a song to them and wish them on their well. Do you have Go in Love? Go in love, do you have the hymn? Oh. Okay, go in love. Let's say it out loud. Go in love, our hearts go with you. Go in joy, our hopes go too. Learn in love and grow in wisdom. Shine your light in all you do. Thank you so much. I thought they're going to have a great time. All will be well. Oh, my goodness. I love church. I love Morning is Broken. This morning, mornings like this are what I always think of when I hear that hymn. It's just the beautiful beginning light green mornings. This is the time when we have our gratitude moment, because we know that the things that we are grateful in our lives are the things that bring us the great joy and help us to give more in the world. And today's nominee is Karen McDowell. She has served this congregation in so many ways. She's been a frontline volunteer for numerous auction events besides working last night. She's been a board member. She's on the search team. She's been on the worship team. She's made more countless care shawls, although she might be able to tell us how many she's actually made. So she has been a blessing to this congregation, and we say thank you, Karen, today. And yay. If there's anybody else, as we continue, remember that that is the thing that keeps this congregation going. Seeing people doing things that are quiet in the corners that we don't really notice, and taking that moment just to say thank you. So out of this place of gratitude and fullness, we bring our own gifts to this church community. This church works tirelessly to make the world a little bit better place. And so now is the time that we share of our own blessings in order to help that good work go on. If you're at home, you can go to our website, www.hinsdaleunitarian.org, and click the donate button. And here in the congregation, we will say our offering words, and then our collection will be gratefully received. So please say them with me. This church is made up of all of us. It's what we learn together, the work we do together, and the fun we have together. It's what we share with one another, with the people around us, and with all the world. Our offering will now be gratefully received.
Our first reading is by Mary Oliver. Truly, we live with mysteries too marvelous to be understood. How grass can be nourishing in the mouths of the lambs. How rivers and stones are forever in allegiance with gravity, while we ourselves dream of rising. How two hands touch and the bonds will never be broken. How people come from delight or the scars of damage to the comfort of a poem. Let me keep my distance always from those who think they have the answers. Let me keep company always with those who say, look, and laugh in astonishment and bow their heads. Thus ends the reading.
invite you to settle into your chairs, to put your feet on the floor, to let your shoulders drop and take a deep breath in. Relaxing breath out. As we have some words from Pablo Neruda. Now we will count to 12, and we will all keep still for once on the face of the earth. Let's not speak any language. Let's stop for a second and not move our arms so much. It would be an exotic moment without rush, without engines. We would all be together in a sudden strangeness. Fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales, and the man gathering salt would not look at his hurt hands. Those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, victories with no survivors, would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade, doing nothing. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. If we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving, and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. Now, I will count up to 12, and you keep quiet, and I will go. As we return from the silence, we want to congratulate Taylor Wolfram and AJ Zhang on the birth of their daughter Cornelia Nellie James Wolfram Zhang. Welcome, dear Nellie. We can't wait to meet you. We also hold Jeff Tepema and his family, whose dad and his mom are both dealing with some health issues right now. We continue to remember all of those suffering from the war in Ukraine, and hold in our hearts a deep prayer of peace. But if something has arisen in you this morning that is either dancing on your heart or weighing you down and you would like to share it with this congregation, you're welcome to come up and light a candle. And then you can say something to share, a word or a phrase, or you can simply return to your seat. We'll begin.
Hi, I'm Susan. I actually have three joys. One, this church, they're all related to May 20th, by the way. The celebration was just beautiful, and it's just so wonderful to see all of us together and to share in that way. On May 20th, we also celebrated my daughter Anna's graduation from Parsons School of Design. So send her good vibes as she sets off. And Jeff and I celebrated our 33rd anniversary as well on the May 20th. So it's a big day.
Hi, I'm Kathy Blandford. I lit a candle this morning for this church and our pen pal program, prison pen pal program, which led me to the man I love, Bill Ryan. I'm so grateful for him.
My name is Marion. On the one hand, I'm very sad that in Hinsdale we have high school students who are homeless or anybody who's homeless. But on the other hand, I'm so grateful to our congregation and all the people who stepped up and brought supplies for those students to send them off to college with just a little bit of extra help. Thank you so much.
I'm Keith, and an acquaintance of ours is going to be undergoing brain surgery on Tuesday. She's a talented musician, and we hope that this will not severely impact her skills as a person overall and as a gifted musician.
I have to thank again all the people that made Friday night such a wonderful, wonderful evening. From Steve and Nancy, but everybody. It was such a delight and shows the strength of this church. Now, one thing that the COVID has brought us is Zoom. And because of Zoom, Ron and I were able to watch our granddaughter graduate from University of California at Bakersfield on Saturday and go through about 500 names until they got to Cameron Helen Solberg, and it was wonderful.
Morning, my name is Nancy, and I'm just so grateful to have Rev Pam with us this morning, and just thinking about all that she's done for us in the last 8 years that we were so privileged to have her with us, and just sad to be seeing her go.
Thank you so much. We light our 3 final candles, one for all of those intentions that might be too tender to be spoken aloud this morning. One for our leaders, that they know who they serve, where they live, and that each of us can remind them. And then finally, for this congregation that walks with us in our joys and our sorrows, and will always, always be in my heart. I invite you to join in singing Spirit of Life. You can rise if spirit of body if you feel called to do so. And I just want to let everyone know that I did take a COVID test this morning that was negative, so I don't feel like I'm going to be spreading anything, so that I could not have the mask up at the chancel. Here is one of my favorite videos, so I hope you enjoy it.
I'm like one of those Japanese bowls that were made long ago. I have some cracks in me. They have been filled with gold. That's what they used back then when they had a bowl to mend. It did not hide the cracks. It made them shine instead. So now every old scar shows from every time I broke, and anyone's eyes can see I'm not what I used to be. But in a collector's mind, all of these jagged lines make me more beautiful and worth a much higher price. I'm like one of those Japanese bowls. I was made long ago. I have some cracks you can see how they shine of gold.
This is from Broken Open by Elizabeth Lesser. When we descend all the way down to the bottom of a loss and dwell patiently with an open heart in darkness and pain, we bring back up with us the sweetness of life and the exhilaration of inner growth. When there is nothing left to lose, we find the true self, the self that no longer looks to others for definition or completion, or anything but companionship on the journey. This is the way to live a meaningful and hopeful life, a life of real happiness and inner peace. Thus ends the reading.
This month marks the period of time when, for the first time, I have been divorced from my first spouse longer than we'd been married. We were together for 19 and a half years, and now we've been apart for 20 as of this month. That feels like some kind of weird anniversary, something marking my life that means something, but I'm not exactly sure what. And why am I sharing with you this morning? Some of you might relate. Some of you might have weird anniversaries that come up that you're not quite sure what to do with either. Something might come up that makes you wrestle with something that you haven't thought about for a really long time. And you know, over the time that I've been here, that's what ministry has been for me in some ways. It's been looking at my own fissures and cracks and broken places, trying to figure out what the meaning is for me, and then opening it up and offering it to you to see if any of it speaks to you in your experience, in your life. I'm sure I've occasionally crossed the boundary into oversharing, and for that I apologize. But I figure we're all human, being human together. And I use this wrestling with the mystery of our beingness to really share that humanity and to try to figure out how we can do this thing, being human, a little bit better. Now, on any given day, I know my life is only this big, and your lives spread so much wider, so that I'm only probably going to connect with a few of you on any given day, but I'm also hoping that that's why we throw in good music and good readings and words from other people, so that at the end of the day, there might be some spark that is spoken to your heart, something that is woken up, something that you never thought about before and that you're going to go home and chew on and wrestle with. That you might come up with your own aha moment simply because we shared. I've been your minister, but you each minister to each other in this same way all of the time. Each of you bring your own cracks. And what I hope we do in this group together is to realize we don't have to hide our cracks, that our cracks are what make us beautiful. Our cracks are what make us shine. And when I see that your pattern or cracks are similar to mine, we have something to connect with. Sharing our flaws and the mistakes we made actually helps all of us have a much richer experience of life than if we just sat home by ourselves, pondering what life means. Today's you might imagine, a little bit of a difficult sermon day for me. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and that seems really present in my life. I've been struggling with some mental issues. I reached a point where my mind and body simply were not working together. My mind would say, "You can do this," and my body would go, "Nope." It was confounding. I had never had that experience before. And I felt like it was the result of ignoring messages that my heart had been sending me for a long time. It had been telling me, stop, breathe, wait, take time off. And I kept saying, I can do this. My brain kept saying, you could do this. It reminded me, I don't know why this story came up. It was a story of when I was younger, living home with my family. We had a horse, and his name was Pete. He was this beautiful horse. I bought him off the racetrack. He was a beautiful, rich red bay, which means his coat was a reddish brown, and he had points. His face was black, and his legs and mane and tail were black. He was just a gorgeous, sweet, sweet guy. But one time he got an abscess in his hoof. And so the treatment for that was you had to hold his foot in a 5-gallon bucket of Epsom salts for 20 minutes 3 times a day. It's a lot of fun. So you had to hold his foot in the bucket, because if you moved even away, he'd just kick it over and then be done. So I would be holding his foot in the bucket, and I would realize over time this horse was starting to lean on me, and suddenly I had a 1,000-pound horse beating all his weight on me, and I'd have to go boop, and he'd stand back up. And he'd reach down and he'd say hello. He was the biggest sweetheart ever. But what I realized is that, like, a lot of times life sneaks up on us like that, doesn't it? It's not some big foomp that suddenly, it's the little slimy increments of picking up that one more thing, that one more little thing, that one more tiny thing, until suddenly it's not tenable. You can't support a 1,000-pound horse. And I think each and every one of us has those times in our lives. And right now I think maybe there's a lot of us going through it since we've just come through this 2 years of COVID. I've been reading a lot about what burnout is and about mental illness in general, and one of the interesting things that I'd never heard before was the researchers are beginning to believe that more and more what we think of as mental illness is actually our body's response to trauma that has been buried for a very long time. And that the trauma that it's our body that is holding that trauma, and that when we get to some place, that trauma stops, our body actually stops us from being able to function. And it might be through a deep depression, or it might be through a manic episode, or it might be any one of these ways, and it's usually something that it's been some coping mechanism that served us in the past. But for some reason, it doesn't serve us anymore. And that's the time to stop and to take a look at what is going on, what our body is actually telling us, and how we can move forward through that. My body said no a few weeks back. And the long story that many of you know is that Karen and I had a really difficult few years, starting in 2016, when my dad died after a very long bout with ALS. Then the next year, my mom had a stroke 5 weeks after my dad died, and she died the following spring, 2017, of the results of that stroke. And then 2018, Karen's mom died of cancer with some other things, and then her dad died in 2019. And each of them had a year of taking care of a parent out of state, and then they all passed in the spring. And in the midst of all of that, just to make life a little bit more interesting, Karen had 2 pretty severe bouts with cancer. So she finished up 16 rounds of chemo in June of 2019. So that's a lot to go on in the space of about 4 years. So come January 2020, I said, I need time off. My body was saying, I need time off. I need to take time. I said goodbye to you all. I said, I love you. I painted the church as my farewell gift. And then March 2020, the pandemic hit. And yeah, nobody knew what was going to happen. And we were on lockdown. So when I talked to the board, I thought, I'm on lockdown. Maybe I could stay 1 more year. Going into search in the middle of a pandemic that we didn't know what was going to happen seemed like a good thing. And so we did that. And lockdown wasn't so bad, really. And last spring I said, it wasn't so bad. I could do this again. We were still totally virtual, and search during a pandemic had not been going well for other congregations around us. But here's the problem. My body and my mind were not communicating in that decision. It's kind of a pattern that I've had that I keep saying, no, I can do anything. I can do anything for 6 months. I can do anything for 3 months. I can do anything for 2 weeks. And doing that thing gets me lots of kudos, doesn't it? Showing up. There's a lot of affirmation for showing up and doing this stuff. So it's not like I was just doing it out of the goodness of my heart. I was getting things back. I was getting approval for saying I'd stay a little bit longer. But I wasn't listening. I wasn't listening to myself. And suddenly, at a certain point in March, my body just said, nope, not going to do this anymore. And I'm guessing some of you might relate to this experience. Maybe not recently, maybe in some point of your life. Especially if you're a nurturer, if you're the helper, if you're the supporter, if you're the rock in your family. You know the good and the bad of this role. People appreciate you, and it feels nice. But you never get to be the one that just sits down and lets the other people take care of you. Because that feels wrong. You're supposed to be the carer, aren't you? You're supposed to be the person taking care of everybody. But when you can run into a pandemic, my goodness, that's when it opens up all those false ideas that we carried in our hearts, or I carried in my mind. And said, I really have to start not going with the flow in some ways. I have to pay attention to this heart that's speaking to me. We've all used coping mechanisms through this time, and some of them have been much better than others. Some people have worked. Some people have not really had much of a change. Some people have had their lives totally turned upside down. And I'm wondering, just for a moment, where are you today? How have you gotten through this period of time? Has it been doable? Is it something you'd rather just take a big break from? Where are each of you with your coping mechanisms? It's like, when I talk to people, I hear that so many of folks are just exhausted. Everybody, all the time, just tired. And it's confusing. It was confusing to me. It doesn't feel like I'm doing that much different, so why am I so tired? Well, I mean, for one thing, we can say we know the teachers are exhausted because they've been trying to help online, trying to keep kids safe and teach them in just tremendously hard situations. And, of course, healthcare workers, oh my goodness, taking care of people who refuse to take their own basic precautions to take care of themselves and still doing it with a giving heart. And social workers and therapists and all those people whose job it is to care for other people and support people in trouble. And here the whole darn country has been in trouble. So we know why a lot of folks are tired. But there's this other level of stress that's underneath that I think we've talked about it in years past, and that suffering is the result of three different things. Suffering comes from, first, pain, but second, from an inability to predict what's going to happen, and third, from a lack of control. And so in these past 2.5 years, we have definitely had no ability to predict what's going to happen, and very little control in what is going on in our lives. And when we're under that kind of stress, what comes up is an anger, a frustration. I want to be mad at somebody. But here, what can you be mad at in the middle of a pandemic? I mean, some folks have just decided that they'll be mad at librarians, or they'll be mad at people who make them wear masks, so they'll be mad at vaccines. And so some people have taken that easy way out, that they'll be mad at something, and that gets rid of the anger out of their body. But I believe most people in this room are people who are self-reflective and understand that there's nobody really we can be mad at. It's just life. And so then what do we do with that anger? If there's no place to put it, we shove it down. And when you hold big emotions down, it takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of energy to hold emotions down that you don't know what to do with. And that's why we're all so freaking tired. We're holding all that energy down, all that anger down. And so we have to figure out some way to let it come out, some way to release it, some way not without yelling at a poor librarian or a teacher or anybody else, a nurse. We have to let that anger out and release it into this atmosphere, release it into this rich, dark earth on which we walk. But we have to find out how to do that, don't we? I did find a couple sheets of paper. I put them on the back desk. There's probably 20, 25 that are all ways to live life that are well-being, ways to take care of ourselves that don't let us get up to that place where our body and our mind say, stop, I'm not talking anymore, that let us really actively care for our whole selves so we can bring our whole selves to the world and accept what the world wants to give us back. When I hit that place that I couldn't move, it reminded me of our dog Parker when she was a puppy. Either Karen and I had had a dog for a very long time, and one of our first days that we had her, we took her out for a long walk. She seemed to have boundless energy. We reached a point in the walk where Parker looked at us and just sat down. We couldn't get her to go forward or backwards. We picked her up and we carried her back. And it took a long while for Parker to trust us again to actually go on a walk. We still refer to it as Parker's death march. We pushed her too hard and she was having none of it. My therapist told me that Parker has good boundaries. I should have learned from Parker. We should all learn from Parker. Because we have mechanisms and ways that we deal with the world. But when the world is totally different from all the different ways we've known it in the past, sometimes we have to rethink those mechanisms. We have to rethink and reevaluate and change how we're going to be in relationship with it. Sometimes we just have to say no. I'm okay. And I know you are all going to be amazing. And so mostly today, I want to tell you that I'm sharing my struggles not because I'm unique, because I'm not. It's a very common story. But usually we're embarrassed to talk about the times that we just can't make our body and mind work together. Usually those are things that we want to keep quiet and not tell anybody else about. And that's the reason I'm telling you. Because the thing that got me here, that got me to a place of finding healing and making this decision, was being in a group with other ministers, and one of them suggesting an article that I could read. And when I read that article that talked about burnout and talked about all these different aspects, I sat there and I started crying. I actually started sobbing. Because reading that somebody else was going through this allowed me to go, oh, this is real. This isn't one thing that if I just pushed a little bit harder, you could make it through. No. Sometimes you cannot push any harder. Sometimes the very best thing you could do for yourself and everybody around you is to say, no, this is my boundary. This is what I can do, and this is what I will do. Knowing that I'm not alone in my inability to manage emotions gave me the freedom and the courage to change, to stop pushing against life, to surrender and allow it to open up to mornings like this, to allow it to be all that it is, good and bad and everything in between. During our time together, I've tried to follow the advice of the Unitarian minister and transcendentalist Ralph Waldo Emerson, and he described ministry as life passed through the fire of thought. And that's what I've tried to do with you. I've tried to take my life, break it open, put a little gold in the cracks, say this is what it looks like for me, and invite you to share your own beautiful and shining cracks. I will miss all of you, and we'll talk a few more times before I'm gone. And the hardest part of this decision is knowing that I'm going to have to say goodbye to so many good, wonderful, and nourishing relationships, and stop doing the exciting work that I know this church is going to be doing in the coming years, that I know it's going to grow. And just like the amazing prison ministry, where I think we have 18 people that we're supporting. This tiny church is supporting 18 people in prison through letter writing. I think that's astounding. And there's all kinds of things that we can do if we open our hearts and we share our own cracks and we commiserate with each other and we widen the world so that we know that there is almost nothing that we can't do when we all reach out a hand and do it together. Now I'm going to share my other favorite Peter Mayer song because he talks about letting go of those things that you thought were the right thing to do and relaxing into that divine. Amen, and blessed be.
In the ever-shifting waters of the river of this life, I was swimming, seeking comfort. I was wrestling ways to find a boulder I could cling to, a stone to hold me fast, where I let the fretful waters of this river around me pass. So I found an anchor, a blessed resting place, a trusty rock I called my Savior. There I would be safe from the river and its dangers, and I proclaimed my rock divine. And I prayed to it protect me, and the rock replied, God is a river, not just a stone. God is a wild raging rapids and a slow meandering flow. God is a deep and narrow passage, a peaceful sandy shore. God is a river swimmer, so let go. Still I clung to my rock tightly with conviction in my arms, never looking at the stream to keep my mind from thoughts of harm. But the river kept on coming, kept on tugging at my legs, till at last my fingers faltered and I was swept away. So I'm going with the flow now, these relentless twists and bends, acclimating to the motion and a sense of being led. And this river is like my body now, it carries me along through the ever-changing scenes and by the rocks that sing this song. God is a river, not just a storm. God is a wild raging rapids and slow meandering flow. God is a deep and narrow passage and a peaceful sandy shore. God is a river swimmer, so let go. God is the river swimmer, so let go.
I invite you to, we can rise as we extinguish our flame. Ask Susan to do that and say the words with me. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of its truth, the warmth of this community, nor the fire of our commitment. These we carry in our hearts and share with all the world. Now please join in singing our closing hymn. We're going to do We Laugh, We Cry, verses 1, 3, and 4. If you're just looking up there, the right words will be there. And Jonathan will play it for us. We laugh, we cry, we live, we die, we dance, we sing our song. We need to feel there's something here to which we can belong. We need to feel the freedom just to have some time alone. But most of all, we need close friends we can call our very lives with all pain and grief. But as we live, so shall we die, and when our lives are done, the memories we've shared with friends, they will linger on, and we believe in life and in the strength of love, and we have found a place to be together. We have the right to grow. We have the gift to believe that peace within our living is an answer. Seek elusive questions to the questions of this life. We seek to put an end to all the waste of human strife. We seek for truth, equality, and blessed peace of mind. And then we come together here to make sense of what we find. We believe in life and in the strength of love, and we have found a joy being together. And in our search for peace, maybe we'll finally see, even to question truly is an answer. You could be seated for just a second. Our final blessing comes from Jan Richardson. Blessed are you who bear the light in unbearable times, who testify to its endurance amid the unendurable, who bear witness to its persistence even when everything seems in shadow and grief. Blessed are you in whom the light lives, in whom the brightness blazes, your heart a chapel, an altar where the deepest night can be seen, the fire that shines forth in you, in unaccountable faith, in stubborn hope, in love that illumines every broken thing it finds. Go forth and shine your own bright lights. Go forth in peace. Amen.